Hey, this is going to be a quick presentation where I go into some of the data behind the 2024 presidential election in context with a documentary that I'm currently producing. I'm targeting different stream sites. I'm I need to iron out some things, and I'll get back to the producers of the documentary Tethers, if you've ever heard of that. If you haven't, look it up. It's on Amazon now. I've seen it. And picking their brains, and I'll have to follow up with them. Uh, I have a trailer. Let me skip forward. Again, this is mostly about how I crunched some of the numbers with the black vote in the last presidential elections. Let's play this.
And I won like NAACP AXO award for this essay and something else. I can't remember another, like I ended up winning money. And the essay was, do you think black people should get reparations? And I was like, no, you didn't work for it. And I won awards.
How do you win an NAACP award for arguing against reparations? And how common are these award winners? And how does this award winner just so happen to meet with Kamala Harris?
Why not target the African American community? The national disaster. You target your money for the national
No.
disaster relief.
That's not how America works.
So I find myself once again in the same position as President Obama. We both oppose reparations.
And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do.
Should the U.S. also compensate descendants of enslaved people? Do you support reparations for African Americans?
Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come
When
here...
Biden was asked about reparations, he started talking about immigration, passionately too. When Obama was asked about reparations, he said it wasn't fair to immigrants. I got one. How does working for an organization that slandered a reparations advocacy group look on your resume? Good enough to be the White House press secretary. How do you have joy in a genocide?
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning.
Reparations for the past.
There's a lot of questions that need asking. Since nobody's asking them, I'm going to answer them.
Dramatically in Pennsylvania. Harris's lead with African Americans among likely African American voters in Pennsylvania in our poll is 55 percentage points over Trump. Biden in 2020 in the exit polls won African American voters in Pennsylvania by 85 percentage points. That is a potential warning sign in places like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh,
I don't know about CNN's exit polls. That's kind of weird compared to the numbers that I'm looking at. They weren't that bad, but I could stand by everything in that tiny trailer, except for the sound quality. That's kind of a work in progress. I wanted to do another scene, and instead I'm doing this presentation mostly because I'm not ready for another scene yet. I'm working on things like that. But even when you look at the math, which wasn't as dire as those numbers in relation to Biden, Kamala Harris could have won this election with a slight uptick in these states. Any four of these states would have won the election. You could take the smallest in terms of delegates, Wisconsin, and combine that with the two largest. So three of them could have won the election. So I'm going to go into why I'm making this case. And it's mainly because there isn't a lot of data. There's some, especially with North Carolina and Georgia, but there isn't a lot of data that measures the turnout. It doesn't measure the couch. It'll talk about exit polls where people um, are polled, and it's like, hey, you're black. Who did you vote for? And you could just say a Democrat. You might not even actually voted for the Democrat, because you got down ballot voters. Hell, like myself. Um, you could, but still, you're counted. Okay, black Democrat. That's how they do exit polls. And how many people have ever said that they were even exit polls? Exit polled. I heard one person say it, who called in Yvette Cardell's show, and they said they just asked her if she was a Democrat. She didn't vote for, I think it was Biden when it happened. So there isn't really that strong, at least based on race, um, data for turnout in every state. It is for 2 of the 5 right here. So to make this quick, let me just jump into it. Let's look at North Carolina. She lost North Carolina by about 180,000 votes. The simple way I did this before I had the numbers, because the numbers for the turnout for black voters was released for North Carolina and Georgia. It wasn't released for the other states. So I had to estimate it. And to really start that estimation, to develop a formula, I would just Google the black population in the state. I would subtract the non-voters. Why are you skipping ahead? I would subtract the non-voters, kids, under 20. That's kind of inaccurate because 18 and 19-year-olds can vote. But I figured, you do have felons or whatever, and I just kind of left it with this, subtract kids, estimate turnout. And estimating the turnout, I had to look at different sites that were estimating it. And I did this before I had the data with North Carolina and Georgia, and I was a little off, but either way, the numbers still hold with both North Carolina and Georgia. And North Carolina and Georgia, they work well in this equation because they book in the other 3 states. Harris needed the largest turnout to flip North Carolina and the smallest to flip Georgia. So that's how they book in. This becomes more of a formula, because once I do all of that, I look at who's eligible, I look at the difference, then you can look at what are the additional ballots needed, and you would then divide the margin to overcome by the conversion rate. The conversion rate is, and this is something I was going by exit polls. The people polled, 85% of black voters said they were voting for Harris. So I divide that, and then I take additional ballots, and I can find what's needed, the turnout increase, and then I would divide that by additional ballots by eligible voters, multiply that by 100%, and I get the percent needed for the turnout increase. So here's the calculation again. Delta T, change in turnout. You then take the ballots needed, which is the difference divided by the conversion, and that will increase it because it's a decimal, it's lower than 1. And this is fun because you can change it. You can put in Obama numbers right here. He had 95% in North Carolina. So this is all North Carolina still, but I do this with other states. I didn't do this in the national election, but hell, I could. Then you have the new turnout, what that would need to be, and that's the previous percentage plus the absolute increase needed, and that's how you would get, you would need a 79.5 percent turnout. And this is assuming you're still getting 85% of the vote. This is somewhat large, but it's not that large when you look at white voters in North Carolina. I think they were like 78%. So 1.5% more than white voters, not increasing the conversion, and Harris would have flipped North Carolina. Matter of fact, let me look at the next slide. If you take the turnout for Obama, and this turnout was reported. It was reported some, I think, government site. I can put the links if they're not there, because I'm looking at them right here. I can put the links in the description of the video. This looks like CNN or Times. Let me check. This is the Times. This is from 2008 Obama. 95% conversion compared to Harris 86. And let's see. And with the 66 turnout, when this is applied, if you take Obama's numbers for Harris, she gets roughly an extra 273,000 votes. And remember, she needed 180 to win. This is North Carolina. She would have won the state. So this is what I mean when people say, hey, you can't get more of the black vote. You can't get more than 85%. Well, I mean, Obama did, but I kind of understand that rationale. But you can definitely get a better turnout. Like Obama had a 73% turnout with a huge conversion, a ridiculous conversion rate. I would say nowadays, if you're going to try to pull this, you're going to need reparations, and you're going to have somebody who can articulate it better than Kamala. But they would rather try to convert the type of people that you saw in that roundtable debating Sam Cedar. With Pennsylvania, Harris lost by 120,000 votes. Very close. A lot of delegates. And before I go into that equation with Pennsylvania, I didn't have the turnout numbers like I did with North Carolina and Georgia, so I had to look at things. I had to look at articles. This is a good article. She has a video. The only problem is she doesn't mention reparations. She mentions everything but as ways to engage black voters. And she wasn't really like him and hawing with people of color that much. She was also interviewed with, this is, I guess, Laura Flanders and her together. But there's a good article in Wisconsin. So I'm assuming a lower turnout. I was a little low. I assume 63% for North Carolina based on this and based on reports and polls. But it was actually a little bit higher. It was 66% for North Carolina. And I actually assumed higher for Georgia by one measure, and that was lower. So looking at it, you would need just without a different conversion rate to have won Pennsylvania, you would have needed an 11% turnout increase. This isn't earth-shattering. If Kamala Harris wasn't offering a Trumpless bottom cast, she was offering something real, game-changing, and did so early in the campaign. And I know it can't be that early, but the thing is, she wasn't offering it. She wasn't really running on that before she became the vice president-elect and vice president nominated, I guess I would say. Michigan, even fewer. I think it was like 80,000. I'm looking at it, trying to do the math on the fly. But I remember it being less than 100,000. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think I'm using 80,000. Then you have the conversion rate goes up to 94. An 8% increase wins Michigan. Now, you also had issues with Gaza. And I'm kind of like, I don't believe you can really rely on someone having a passion to address a racial cast with reparations when they don't have the passion to say that they're going to stop arming Israel. I need to see that type of morality and passion. You know, it has to be consistent. But same equation, going by the assumption of a 60% turnout, you would need to boom it up to 68. If it was a little higher, you'd have to raise it by 8.6. But either way, we're not talking about astronomical numbers. We're not talking about more than white voter turnout in North Carolina. Wisconsin, she lost Wisconsin by about 30,000 votes. So again, not a huge black population. It doesn't matter. When you need 30,000 votes, you only needed a 10% increase to get from 60 to 70. And looking at the run-up in the numbers and the sentiment, she wasn't at 70. I might be off, but she wasn't at 70 in Wisconsin. The case is not made for that at all. Georgia. Just 115,000 votes, big black population. Looking at this site, this government page, and even going back to 2012, because this seemed awfully low, this turnout, awfully low. I rounded it I rounded it to 50%. Well, the data round goes to 50.2%. And I let ChatGPT run with this. I rounded it up to 53. I was seeing similar numbers, just going by all the reports and everything, and people in the know before this was released who had said they had looked at this. I was going by 53. Another site had it at 58%. I should probably put that out there too. I should probably put those numbers out, that site out. People can read that. But even if you run it with 58%, I mean, this is very winnable. A 63% turnout. She got that actually got 66 in North Carolina. Wasn't enough. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't rah, rah, rah to win, but and I know that there's gerrymandering and there's some questionable stuff going on in Georgia, but the white turnout was uniquely low in Georgia too. So Georgian voters were just not really hitting it in this election. I don't think they were really feeling either candidate. But again, if you're not offering a Trumpless bottom cast, if you're really offering something, you can move black voters. But like Kamala said, she said, I don't have black men in her pocket. What she's low-key saying is she has black women in her pocket. And if you think you have black women in your pocket, are you really going to try to fight for the turnout? Conversion rate high and all with black people in general, whatever. I got them in my pocket. Banked on that, and I'm saying a passionate, or not even a really passionate, just a strong uptick. Arguably in Georgia, a slight uptick. In the other book in North Carolina, a strong uptick in black votes, and Kamala Harris wins the election. So this is the data. Before I end this shows, like, this was Clinton, 88% of the black vote. Biden, 87% of the black vote. This is exit polls overall in the nation. But let me pull up Savvy's video.
with Latino men in particular, with, obviously we talked about the work we did with African-American men. I mean, I would say African-Americans have been on the same trend line since '08 even, where we've seen a decrease in support cycle after cycle, which we were able to hold off this time. So I think there is.
If you're going to say a decrease cycle after cycle, and you go from 88 to 87 to 86%, you didn't hold it off. And that's not exploring turnout, which they really don't talk about at all with black voters. I did. And what I showed was that a slight uptick in Georgia, a strong uptick in North Carolina, and something in between with just one of those other states wins the election. That's all she need if you add up the delegates. So thanks. That's it. I don't know when I'll have the next update. I have some things I need to explore, but there's so much material. I'm looking forward to bringing this to your couch, get off YouTube for a bit, and because I think we need something like Betrayal, because that trailer just scratches the surface. There's material in gobs. The middle finger that they've given their base deserves a deep dive, and I'm diving deep. See you then.